האמריקאי זה לא כל כך נורא. לא אוהבים כל כך לחם כמו הישראלי.
Today is the 21st. 22nd. 22nd of 22nd of ER, the 20th of May.
Yeah.
Okay. So we said that we're learning Hakravas and Sefirat HaOmer in Derech Mitzvosecha, page 54, chapter 3, and we've advanced a little bit. We spoke about in chapter 3 that the se'or, the barley, which we said is she'ul hey, or five, we explained it until now as 5 origins of speech, the 5 origins in the vocal system. But now he's saying this is the second idea here. The second main idea is that barley represents contemplation, represents the food of the animal soul. What do we mean by contemplation being the food of the animal soul? That the purpose of Chassidus is to explain to the animal soul divine ideas. And the way you do this is through contemplation. Meaning, if you just tell the animal soul what it says in the Torah, so it's like speaking to someone who is deaf. It doesn't understand the language. So what you have to do is, you have to translate it using your mind into some kind of language that the animal soul understands. And specifically, the language that it understands is the language of emotions. That is the usual language that it understands. So you have to reach what we call the midot shebamochin, the emotions in the thought. You have to be able to unlock them. And that's what the Tanya speaks about in length, that contemplation is in order to awaken the heart, in order to reach the inner recess, the left side of the heart, which is an inner recess of the heart. And in there, that's where, as a word, the animal soul dwells. And to reach it with contemplation that will cause it to contemplation Hitbonenut, so that it understands the language of Torah in emotional terms.
I can speak for myself, which I won't, but it seems many people who did tshuva were hit on an emotional level.
Right.
Some intellectual,
right.
But that's emotional for them, in a sense.
Right.
Even the stories are emotional.
Right. Even the intellect of the animal soul is relatively emotional, relatively speaking.
Relatively emotional.
Yeah. It's still related to the heart. It's still something that's lower.
Yes.
Meaning that there's excitement in it. There's some kind of excitement.
Like a certain sugya to an intellectual, maybe more than that's
right. Exactly. And that, now he explains, is se'ora, this barley, this word, Hebrew word for barley, which now he says is kol chad v'chad lefum shi'ura delay, which means a shi'ur. Shi'ur is the amount or the portion, or not the portion itself. It's the quality that he can perceive. Every person has a certain level of contemplation that they can perceive. Contemplation of God. So one person understands very intellectually, the other person understands very emotionally. It's on that spectrum. But all that is in order to explain things to the animal soul. So that is all this, the food of the animal soul. So we had two things related to the animal soul. The one is that the animal soul has the gvurot, the left side, the might. And the might is what creates the speech, because it breaks up the air until we have letters and form words and so on. And the second idea here is that se'ora, that barley, also represents a type of contemplation that the animal soul can understand. So all this is done during the Sefirat HaOmer. This is all done during the counting of the Omer, which is barley. And we're working towards the wheat. And the wheat is the divine soul. That already represents a different language. We said that wheat in Hebrew, chita, is equal to 22. It represents the 22 letters of the Hebrew language. Ach b'shavuot, so on Shavuot, when we finish counting the Omer on the 50th day, hu gilui b'chinat chita, we reveal the aspect of wheat in ourselves. And the wheat is already the human, not the animal. The human inside of us. V'hu inyan mitzvat shtei alechem. And this is the other offering that's brought. First offering is brought the day after Pesach. It's called the offering of the Omer. Then, the one time that we bring chametz, actual chametz, in the temple is on Shavuot. on the 50th day of the counting of the Omer, and we bring an offering called the Shtei HaLechem, the 2 loaves of bread.
Yeah, that's right.
And they are chametz.
ועד אז לא נתנו חמץ?
אין בכלל.
אין בכלל.
There is no chametz in the, כן.
וכל הלחם.
כי כל שאור,
כל הלחם שעושים.
but it's not offered on the altar. לא שמים את זה על המזבח.
על המזבח אין חמץ.
שתי הלחם.
The lechem panim was not.
מניפים אותו לפני המזבח. You raise it before.
Was not on.
You don't burn it on the altar,
No,
but you
no.
bring it before the altar.
Right. So what
The
is
lechem
actually
apanim,
burned?
the showbread, is not. It's just eaten.
So what is actually burned on Shavuos?
There's two sheep that are brought on with
You
it.
say there's a chametz offering that's actually
The 2
burned.
loaves of bread, they're the
don't
only
burn.
chametz that's ever. It's not burned on the altar
No.
itself, but it's raised before the altar.
Okay.
It's brought before the altar.
Okay.
The showbread has nothing to do with the altar. It's not connected.
No, okay. Right.
So
No
vuina,
other chametz is ever.
and it says, "Memoshvotechem taviu lechem tnufa." From your dwelling places, you will bring a bread that will be raised, meaning lifted in front of the altar. Shnei sonim solet. It should be made out of a certain amount of flour. Tiyena chametz te'afen, and they have to be baked as leavened bread. It has to be. If it's not chametz, it's not the offering, and that's the opposite of every single meal offering brought in the altar.
שים אותו בתנור אחרי שנהיה חמץ.
כן.
אם אתה מכניס אותו ישר זה לא יהיה חמץ.
Right?
כמו המצות של פעם.
No, you by letting it rise. The way you make something chametz is by letting it rise. You just let it sit for a while, and if it sits more than 18 minutes, it becomes chametz. That's the. So why do we do it like this? Because pchinat chita nikra ma'achal adam. Because wheat is the food of man. שהוא המשכה נמשך לנשמות שבישראל עצמן, שהיא למעלה משעורה שמאכל בהמה חיות המלאכים. So he says, this is the food that man eats, and it's what sustains the divine soul, the souls of Israel. What we call the souls of Israel is the divine soul. And this is different. It's much higher. It's elevated above the food of the animal, which is the life force of the angels also. And what's that? That is the barley. So we have the wheat and the barley. And so we worked up by going through the whole Sefirat HaOmer. We worked up to now becoming like at the level of a human. And the idea of becoming human is that you're beyond nature now. And why is it on Shavuot? Because Shavuot is also the time of the giving of the Torah. The giving of the Torah is what separates man from beast. Even in myself, even I myself, I have an animal inside, which is like how I'm part of all of nature. Every person has to see himself that way. The Baal Shem Tov used to say that the first contemplation a person should have when he wakes up, or in general when he wakes up, not in the morning, but when he wakes up, when his mind starts working finally, when he becomes self-conscious, is to understand that he and the ant are at the same level. They're the same thing exactly. There's no difference between me and any other creature the God created. But that's at the level of my nature. But for that, God wanted to set man apart, so He gave us the Torah. And even a non-Jew is set apart because he also has a part in the Torah. He's not free of it. In fact, the only problem that he has that he doesn't convert is because he doesn't want to make his life more difficult. If he would understand the value, he would do it. Okay, so and how do we see this? Because that's what we see in the chariot. We see that in the chariot there are all these faces. The angels have faces of animals. And even when the angel that has the face of man, that's still the aspect of nature in man. It's not man who's the real man. The man's the one who's riding the chariot. That's what we say is the visage, the face of Yaakov, who's riding the chariot, who's driving it. That is the real man. The man in the chariot, that's just an animal aspect of man. It's like all the other angels. Okay, so let's end here.
The Baal Shem Tov would hold that any guy would have that potential.
Of course. The reason that they don't.
But we don't hold like that generally.
Right.
We say that there has to be. Don't we say that it's a special soul that was part of?
After the fact, but certainly.
After the fact.
But certainly before, everybody has
anyone
potential.
They all have.
They have to decide if they want to live a more difficult life. But by doing that, they crown God as king. They can't make God as king if you don't accept the Torah. That's the.
But they all have the potential.
Yeah, before the fact, they all have the potential.